order the Operational Services Committee meeting. If I can have a roll call, please.
Ms. Hannah, Ms. Lunsing, Ms. Fabian,
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Here.
Mr. McBride, Mr. Riddle,
Present.
President Ewing.
Here. So the board did meet. We had a meeting scheduled, and I do apologize to the public that that meeting ran over. The board was not able to complete its business, so we do stand in recess, but we wanted to get through our committee meetings because we know there were individuals who showed up this evening, and I do want to be as respectful of your time as I can be. So with that, I would like to approve the meeting minutes for the October 17th, 2023 OSC meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Fabian. Any comments, questions, corrections to the minutes? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any, anyone who doesn't approve, nay. All right, minutes are approved. We have our information items, which is our special education homeless student transportation services request for proposal. So I'm gonna turn it over to yourself, Deputy Moulton.
Thank you, Board President. Good evening, Board, Superintendent, staff, and community. We do have a few information items for you this evening. The first is a special education McKinney-Vento Transportation RFP. As the Board recalls, in the spring we did a one-year extension with our current service provider for the 23-24 school year. This agenda item reflects a detailed timeline of an RFP process for the upcoming school year. There is, for the board's consideration, a rough draft of an RFP for you, but as you can see on the timeline, we're looking to get final feedback and ultimately issue this in January for a February 27th, 2024 recommendation to the Board of Education. And again, this will be a 3-year agreement, which takes us back to kind of the original process we had before we did the one-year extensions, and will take us through 2027.
Just a quick question.
Go ahead, Mr. Riddle.
Just a quick question, Mr. Moulton. Are you aware of other vendors that do this, provide this kind of services in our area?
We are aware of other vendors. I can't say specifically that there are other vendors that could handle the scope and the volume of work that the district has. Last time we did this process for these services was 2017, and I believe we had 2 or 3 vendors that were responsive to the actual proposal. So
Okay.
we
So there
hope to
are
get
some.
more
Yeah.
for some competition, but at this point in time, I can't say with definition that our needs can be supported by other vendors.
Question, Mr.
Thank
Brand.
Mr. McBride.
To Mr. Riddle's point, Mr. Riddles, there are other vendors out there that deals with our too, but they private vendors. But some kind of way, I don't know how they're connected to our district, but there are certain vendors outside of just the 2 vendors that we deal with, which is Top Line and Safeway. But there are some other vendors still picking up our kids. I don't know, they're subcontractors or what, but I know they are.
And how the proposers structure their agreement to us, we'll review. They may elect to do what you were describing, Mr. McBride, is if they can't satisfy all of our need, they might subcontract with other local agencies to provide us support.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any other board members related to this item? Any questions on this item from the public? Seeing as there are none, I'd like to move on to item 5B, Board Policy 3206 and Facility Use Manual.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing. So this item is on the agenda for a couple reasons. One, there's been some commentary recently about our facility fee waiver process. We did switch to a new vendor for facility rental this past summer. We have also looked at this policy and the associated procedures on a regular basis. I did want to bring a couple things to the board's attention, and Mr. White, if you could open up the attachment just so everybody can see. Could you open up the second attachment, please? All right, if you could scroll to page 9. So on this attachment and page, page 3, excuse me. I want to focus on page 3 and page 9 of this attachment because this is really the discussion that's had recently. I referenced in a previous meeting that we had rental categories for facility waivers, classifications, charges, etc. On page 3, we identify 5 classifications of types of groups who can rent our facilities. School-affiliated organizations, other taxing organizations, taxing organizations seeking fundraising or nonprofit organization, community groups, charging admission or nonprofit groups outside of the district, and then lastly, nonprofit groups outside of the district engage in fundraising or for-profit organizations outside of the district. So when we're evaluating the requests for fee waivers, we're looking at these 5 classifications. I do want to apologize to the board as we went through this, knowing that we had updated this. What we expressed verbally is the process was correct, but what actually happened for a situation recently that triggered this discussion, we gave you an inappropriate fee waiver initially. So we're going to include a checks and balance that has a classification of rental moving forward for when we bring the fee waivers. And I will show you what I'm talking about here now. If you could go to page 9, Mr. White. Because this question did come up previously where we said, are we going to offer fee waivers, full fee waivers for everybody who requested? And at that time, we said no. And I said that verbally. I wanted to bring you to the language where it addresses that. We did review this summer. I do not believe personally this language needs to be updated because we have updated. We're going to, like I said, put in additional check and balance to ensure that we are following this consistently so what happened recently doesn't happen again. If you'll notice on your screens, the fee waiver process, approved organizations who fall within classification 3 may request a fee waiver to cover all or partial payment of rental fees. Organizations who fall within classification 4 or classification 5 may request a fee waiver to cover partial payment of rental fees. Personnel and equipment fees will apply to classification 4 and classification 5 organization. A full fee waiver is not applicable to classification 4 and classification 5 organizations. So I did want to make the board aware that we did catch that error as we went back and re-reviewed this. And again, we'll put a check and balance in place to ensure that doesn't happen again because the organization that was brought forward to you, we identified as a classification 5. Okay, so
Can you,
Yes.
Mr. Moen, name the organization?
What was that?
it was Ghostlight Movie Company.
They're the filming people.
Oh,
So
yeah.
during,
Ghostlight Movie Company.
point of order, during that meeting, I had asked if it was for-profit or non-for-profit, and we said for-profit, and it still passed. Is that the aspect we're talking about?
Absolutely.
The aspect was the modified fee waiver
Right.
was appropriate. The initial fee waiver that was a full fee waiver should have come to you initially as modified.
Got it.
And again, the modified one was appropriate. Moving forward, we're going to identify the classification. I do not know how often this document is reviewed by the board and the community, just to ensure as a check and balance before it's published and presented to you that the waiver presented is appropriate per classification.
Just to clarify then, they would have been, if that had came correctly to us, the personnel fees and the equipment would not have been waived for that organization.
That is correct, and the fees for those items they agreed to pay ultimately.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand it correctly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
But it also says a full fee waiver is not applicable
Right.
to
They
the
pay-
They have to
classification.
pay
agreed to pay
personnel
more.
fees and equipment fees.
Oh, I can talk, people, thank you. So that, or Ghostlight, right?
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't have been approved for any waiver
So,
because they're for profit.
so Ghostlight was they are for profit, but classified as a classification 5. So they could request a partial waiver, but they could not request a waiver for personnel and equipment.
So the full waiver includes the venue fee? So that partial waiver would be for them not to pay the venue and only pay personnel and equipment? That's how it's.
Correct, yes. So, again, we wanted to bring this to your attention as we re-reviewed this because there were a lot of questions about it. Again, we're going to add a layer of check and balance to this before it's presented to you. But the last time we discussed this in detail with the board, which was several months ago, we did change this provision. In addition to expanding our nonprofit organization agreement for those fee waivers.
Good.
So then, thank you, Mr. Moten, for correcting the procedure,
Right.
and then we can expect that whenever the waivers come up, that the organization is classified, and we know, is that the expectation from what you, based on what you just said?
Yeah, so we will identify the classification of the organization presented to you,
Yeah, okay.
and that'll be the check and balance to ensure the waiver request is in alignment with this procedure.
Ms. Fabian and Mrs. Sabecki. If we
Is
can
that
get the
currently
mic.
on the form now? Is there a checkbox on the form now that asks them to identify, or that you guys are identifying?
There is a checkbox for partial versus full fee waiver.
Yeah, but I'm saying the
the
classification.
classification of the organization, we actually want to identify it in the agenda item itself.
But could we also identify it on that?
And we can do it on the form as well.
So that prior to getting onto the agenda, you guys are already having
Right.
a layer of check before it gets to the agenda?
We can certainly do it on the form as well. That's reviewed by the FMX specialist.
Go ahead, Mrs.
Question?
Sabecki.
All right, so my thing is with this whole policy. We sit up here and listen every day. We waive all these fees because it's about our students. If it's for our students, then we waive the fees. Then we have organizations come up and we argue for an hour, we vote it down, we bring it back the next board meeting, then we approve it because it was modified or whatever. But here's my thing. It's about our students, right? So we waive the fees. What about all the things we charge our students to do in this district as a district? Why aren't we waiving those fees for them? We charge our kids to attend basketball, football games. Why ain't those waived? We charge our kids to park. We say it's a privilege to park if they're a senior, to park over in our parking lot. We ain't waiving those fees. Why? We charge our kids for everything. Why don't we start charging all these organizations that want to use our facilities, put all that money in its own account, and then pay for the students that can't afford, like homecoming and all this other stuff, so it does really benefit our students. Experiences that a lot of these kids don't get to go to because they can't afford and do. Why don't we charge the people that want to use our facilities, if they want to use our facilities, and then use it for the students that can't afford the stuff? We sit here as a district, we charge our kids for everything in this district. Everything. No matter what they want to do, field trips, everything. We waived the fees for 3 years, but we brought those back now. If a lot of our kids don't qualify, why even bring them back? We got all this money, why bring them back? It's about our students, right? A lot of families are still struggling. We talk about COVID and everything else. A lot of our families are struggling. They're not getting a quality education in our schools. We have so many long-term subs, different subs, like I said earlier, downstairs. How are they getting an education with a different teacher every day? But we want to waive all these fees for these organizations that want to use our buildings, when we should charge everybody instead of charging our kids for everything. We tell our high school students it's a privilege to park in our lot. Charge them $75. If you're charging them $75, $85, whatever it is to park in that lot, it's not a privilege. You got to have a certain GPA. It can be taken away at any time. You got to have a city sticker. Why are we enforcing city ordinances? Some people don't, if they're borrowing someone else's car or driving, why are we as a district put on there that they got to have a city sticker? Because I'm going to be the first parent to tell you, I don't buy a city sticker. Because I park in my own driveway. I don't park on the street. I don't get free parking. I don't go down to the beach and park. So why are we enforcing that? We want to charge our students for everything in this district, but then we want to waive fees for everybody else. That's my perspective on this whole policy. If we're going to waive fees for everybody else, let's start waiving the fees for every event that our students go to support our students. We charge the parents to go see their own kids play games. Why? We don't do it for every sporting event in our district. Just the popular ones: football, not even baseball, football, basketball. Those are the only ones we charge for. That's where the administration shows up for. But bowling and that, no one show up. Baseball, no one shows up. So we should start waiving the fees for our own students if it's about our students, instead of all the organizations.
Thank you, Mr. Becky. Is there a question? Anybody else related to this item?
I have a comment.
Yeah, I agree with him as it relates to our kids having to pay for everything, right? When I think about this here waiving the rental fees, I hope when we do this that we are looking at people that is from Waukegan, 1. 2, the problem that I had with the last folks that we waived it for, they're using students but they wasn't using our students. You know, when we waiving these fees, what is the benefit for us, our students, our community? So that's all I want you guys to consider when we doing this. I think it's a good idea to partner with these entities to allow them to use the spaces, especially if they are working with our kids. But if I don't see waiving the complete fee, I think that if they have some money or they raising some money or making some money, they should be willing to contribute. But as it relates to them sports, as he said, we charge for football and basketball. But a lot of the other ones we don't. We have to look at all of that, y'all. Y'all seeing inflation, times is hard for everybody. So when we're talking about getting the community out to support, we got to figure out a way to engage them. And one of those ways I can guarantee you is if we stop charging, you'll see a lot more up in there. We have a huge budget.
Ms. Lewis?
Creo que deberías de considerar que muchos padres, la mayoría de los padres trabajan desde primavera hasta otoño.
So I think that you should consider that some parents work from spring until fall.
Trabajan en construcción, trabajan pintando casas, trabajan haciendo trabajos afuera.
So they work in construction or in painting, they work outside.
Entonces, para lo que es el invierno, el dinero no llega.
So when it comes to winter, they're not receiving a lot of money.
Entonces, ¿por qué estás cobrándole a los estudiantes y estás dando excepción a otras personas?
So why are you charging the students, but you're waiving fees for other people?
Tienes que pensar en qué clase de comunidad es esta.
You need to think about the type of community that you're working with.
Normalmente la comunidad hispana así es.
Normally the Hispanic community is like that.
Ms. Lindsay?
Mr. Moten, I want to thank you because it takes a lot to come up and announce, hey, we made a mistake, but this is how we're planning to fix it. So I appreciate owning, we messed this one up, but we're going to put things in place so we don't do that again. So that, in my opinion, is one of the best things you can do whenever you make a mistake. So I really appreciate that. For the concerns regarding paying for football games and the basketball games, can you help clarify why those are charging or where those funds are going? Possibly.
So we can help assist with providing a response to that. However, that is a little bit of a different area, completely separate than this. I don't know if Mr. Luosa can speak at
Ms.
all.
Lindsay, and if we can come back with that, we're on a minimal staff this evening.
Understood.
And so we'll come back and we will respond to that in our next board meeting on Tuesday.
Beautiful. As long as we have the information so that the community can understand, I think that's going to be helpful for everyone. Thank
And
you.
we will definitely bring that back on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Mr. LeBaron, we'll just hold till Tuesday.
All right. Yeah, I do appreciate all those comments. Again, I think one thing we want to talk about as a district is just making sure we communicate all of the ways that people can ask for waivers, as well as all of the ways that the school district is taking the opportunity to be equitable, right? Things cost money. At my son's school, they have field trips. It was $20 for the entire year. They also gave parents the opportunity, those that could, to pay the fee for other students who could not, because it still cost the school. But then they also said if you don't have money, we're not going to not let you go on the field trip. So those are 3 ways to make sure that Brandon doesn't need it to be free. I'm lucky, I'm blessed. I don't say that to brag. I say that because I don't need everything free. Our district, I see it costs money. So I would like to contribute. And if my family has the means to support, then I can support other students. We can fundraise. We have foundations and other groups that are helping and stepping up. We need to make sure that those foundations are getting to the people that need it. And then the third way is, again, we're not disqualifying or disallowing students from participating. So we do want to have that conversation, make sure that the community understands it, and then we also want to know that based on our conferences, right, there's sometimes the agreed upon rate that we all pay. So they'll come back with a deeper explanation, but I do appreciate the comments. Seeing as there are any other questions related to item 5B, we want to move on to 5C, which is the projected tax 2023 aggregate levy.
Good evening. I know there's a lot of slides to this presentation, but I won't take you through all of them. I'll take you through the big spreadsheet we have. Lee, it's called the Truth in Taxation Notice Calculations, about middle of the way through. Okay, you got it. So, I know it's kind of small. We got a lot of columns on here, but what the Truth in Taxation is doing is comparing the 2022 extension to the 2023 projected tax levy. And if the 2023 proposed tax levy is 5% or more over the 2022 extension, then we have to file a Truth in Taxation notice, which means we have to advertise in the newspaper, and we have to give 20 days in advance to note the aggregate levy. But in this, we've got a calculation of 4.999, so it's less than 5%. So we don't need to do that, but we have provided the notice in the paper just to be transparent, and this is what it looks like. It was in Saturday's edition, it was in Monday's edition, and it should have been in today's edition of the New Sun. Basically noting what the percentage difference is between the 23 levy and the 22 extension. Notes what the extensions were in 22, also notes what the proposed levy is in 23, and the addition of those numbers should equal the amount of $52,798,505 for the 2022 extension, and the 2023 proposed tax levy. Going back to this spreadsheet, so it does calculate what the extension is, what the levy is. So we levy in the Ed Fund, O&M, Transportation, that MR-SS is IMRF Social Security, Special Ed, Tort, Working Cash, and Life Safety. Those are the funds that we levy a tax in. We also have noted bond and interest here, but we don't calculate it inside of the Truth in Taxation calculation, because that's bond and interest we do not levy for. The county does that based on the bonds that we have outstanding. Is there any questions? So this is, we'll bring this back next Tuesday. This levy needs to be filed statutorily by the last Tuesday in December.
Ms. Fabia.
Are we a part of the property tax relief grant through ISB?
We have.
Does that come into play as well?
We have applied for it, but we have not
received.
We have not been accepted for it.
Okay.
The last three or 4 years, we have pretty much left the extension level from the year before, per the direction of the board. And this is, like I said, this is due by the last Tuesday in December. However, the extension doesn't come out until the end of March or the beginning of April. So somewhere in between there, we'll hopefully get the direction from the board as to whether they want to keep it level again, the extension, or if we can go up. Just keep in mind, and I know that Ms. Polk has mentioned this many times, and I'll mention it again, that once we don't maximize our revenues, though, those are lost forever in our property tax base. So just keep that in mind.
The county ain't playing around. Did you see the newspaper, what they did?
Right.
What's that?
The county board. Did you read the newspaper in terms of?
County board, I think, is increasing theirs this year, from what I
just
read.
thought I'd drop that.
And I think the city is too?
I can't speak for the kitty, but I know the county is, and I know they're one of
Yeah.
our biggest tax districts
And a triple hitter
that
walking
we
around.
have.
So,
Well,
Go ahead, Ms. Gonzalez.
for Tuesday when we get the recommendation, Mr. Luosa, will we have, or in the paper, maybe because I haven't read it, do the residents know the tax impact?
there is, there
Like
is
the
some
dollar?
calculations in here
Okay.
to give you an approximate idea. But it'll also be in Tuesday's package as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vukovic.
Can I clarify that?
Mhm.
That's an estimate?
Yeah,
Because right now, we're doing the levy
yeah,
at just below the 5%, but we really don't know what the
Right.
actual EAV is going to be
yeah.
and the actual impact to the homeowner.
Yeah.
But in our estimates, those numbers are there, and based upon the increased deductions, we're projecting that it's gonna be a reduction to the homeowner
Oh, okay,
at those levels that we've calculated.
okay. Thank you, Ms.
Go ahead, Mr. Vukovic.
Well, and the one thing, most elected officials do not understand property taxes. It's a very complicated thing because it's like you have a group of 10 people that go out for dinner and you all order the same thing, but because you're over 65, you don't pay as much. Because you don't make as much as this one does, you don't pay as much. And there's all these other things that just make it so complicated. This year, the homeowners are going to see an increase in the basic, what do you call it? The homestead exemption goes up to $8,000. And the senior exemption goes up to $8,000. So for a lot of people, if their assessment is somewhat level, they may actually see a reduction. So it's an interesting time. I mean, they talk about the money that you've left on the table. The only way you get that back is through a referendum. And I don't ever see that happening in this community the way things are now.
And never mind.
Yeah.
But thank you for that too, Mr. Vukovic. I think it's important to know that we have kept taxes levy. I know my stance, but there are decisions that the Board of Education will be making as it relates to all types of things and things that we want to do. We even heard from the community that there are recommendations that we waive additional fees, right? It's not an unlimited pot of money. And so the only way that we can increase revenue is through taxes. So I know my stance, but I don't want to influence the outcome. And like you're saying, Ms. Polk, and so at this point, we're not saying that we will be going up just under the 5%. This is a procedure matter in order to make sure that we have that as an option. Is that correct, Mr. Luosa?
Right.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can I just ask?
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
Just
Ritter.
again, an informational question. The fact that property values are going up,
Yep.
someone who owns property and maybe has owned it for 20 or 30 years, their taxes could still go up because their property value, the EAV, is going up.
Yep.
Property, there's a short
That
supply
plays
of
a
property
big
for
part in
sale.
it, is the
and-
EAV of your property. If
Right.
it goes
So
up substantially,
that can affect your taxes
more or
as
less,
well.
you'll probably get an increase in your tax bill.
Exactly. So that doesn't have anything to do with what we do. It's just the fact that property values are going up. And in the state of Illinois, it's not, California freezes property values,
Right.
but not the state of Illinois. So it's a,
But we take the brunt of it as a school district
And we
because the
take-
majority of the taxes go to the school district.
right. Thank you.
If I could say this one thing.
Yes.
It is the recommendation, if I could say this, it is the recommendation of the district that we do maximize our taxes, even if we have to abate, because leaving that money on the table is a detriment to the organization. So I just needed to say that
that we've left millions on the table and we cannot recoup that money. Our base is affected by that moving forward.
Even as a new homeowner, I'm like, I would rather fund the programs than ever have to think about what some of our neighbor districts have had to do in the last couple years.
And what I want to do is commend this Board of Education, right? Is I understand finances, and I also understand when we hear about the Waukegan homeowners and some of the struggles that they have, right? And so the fact that we have been able to keep them levying, that was a conscious decision that did equate to millions. But it's, again, we are all one community, so it's taken from here to give to here to move it from there. And so I appreciate the determination and dedication, is because our finance team, they're looking at our fiscal house. But I think as a Board of Education, we also have looked at what is the impact to Waukegan citizens as a whole, especially as Mr. Luosa said, as we represent over 60% of the tax bill. And so I did want to shout that out, is because a lot of times we don't talk about how we have held the line in order to make sure that taxpayers weren't impacted, as also their home values were increasing, which is what we want to see. So thank you, and we look forward to the recommendation. We have our reports, which are the summer capital projects update.
So a report has been provided for your information. It highlights the work that's been done, that the board has approved, the district has recommended, and the board has approved, completed in early fall or summer of 2023. And as the board is aware, we continue to move forward from a capital planning standpoint, and we're looking forward to continuing, particularly with the roofing at the Brookside campus, which has already been brought to your attention.
So,
Ms. Hannah, Mr. Riddle, and then Mr. Vukovic.
As I looked at
Can you use the mic, Ms. Hannah?
As I looked at the report, there was something missing, and I didn't understand why we didn't have our wraparound center and 214 Washington Street on there. And I understand, when I looked at it, I thought about the word completed and wondered if that was why you didn't include that. Is there explanation or rationale why they're not, it's not included?
Yes, Ms. Hannah, so you're absolutely right. It is not completed. That's why it's not listed here. As well as the fact that we've provided separate updates for the wraparound center in 214 Washington as we've navigated that process, but it is not completed. These are the completed projects as of now.
Do we have a project completion date? I think I asked that before, but I don't think I ever got that answer.
So we provided anticipated completion. One was November, and the other, I believe, was February in our last update.
Oh, so it was first November, and
Oh,
then
for
it
the-
went to?
For the two phases. So the wraparound center is the first phase, the remainder of the building is the second phase. So two different anticipated completions for two different phases.
Okay, and so we are done with the wraparound center.
Not
No,
as of
ma'am.
yet. However, I just want to make it clear, Mr. Moulton, because we did state this, that we had till December 30th to get it done, to give us some time. So I just want to throw that out there, because I do know that we did say December at some point.
Thank you for the correction, Superintendent. Yes.
Okay, and so, and because I'm thinking on the building committee about the, if it's not done by deadline, are there any penalties to the contractor? That's what I'm talking about. And so, that's what I was looking for.
Liquidated damages, Ms. Hannah, I believe what you may be referring to.
Could be.
Yes, ma'am. So, yes, however, we don't anticipate needing to exercise that part of the contract with that project based on where we are in the timeline.
Question,
Go ahead. No, I had a few people. I think it was Hannah, then Mr. Riddle, and then Mr. Vukovic, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. McBride.
Yeah, I just wanted to really congratulate you and your team. I mean, we did a tremendous amount of work. You did a tremendous amount of work with your team this summer. I mean, 9 school vestibules, 6 parking lots. Wow, those look so great. 6 school playgrounds, which just look phenomenal. And then I'm really excited about that Washington Pathways Lab. That project looks really cool. And then some HVAC projects, but which aren't, people don't see, or the fire department board or fire alarm board that, isn't really right on everybody's top priority, but is a very important project. So just kudos to you and your team. You did a tremendous amount of work this summer. So thank you so much, everyone that had anything to do with some of this work. And we got it done on time, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Vukovic.
Yeah, I'd want to comment on the parking lots. I brought this up, talked to the board president, we've communicated about it, and other people. Rules are rules and you got to follow them. I had to do a FOIA with the city of Waukegan and then the regional office to find a building permit 2 blocks away from Hyde Park School. Needs an improvement, no question about it. There was no building permit. City of Waukegan didn't have a record of it. The regional office didn't have a record. Now, as a school district, you either have to have a permit from one or the other. If you get it from the city, they charge a pretty hefty fee. You can get it from the regional office for nothing. Regional office had to come in and shut the project down and several others because you didn't have the permit. Yeah. Now, at Hyde Park, I was eyeballing it. I kept thinking, this just doesn't look right. So I was out on the first or second day of school watching the school bus come in, and I have a video of it, and I've shared it with Mr. Moten and Mr. Ewing and the regional office. After spending, $260,000 on that project, the school bus had to honk its horn, back up, and then proceed to go over the brand new sidewalk that was just put in. So it wasn't it. So they came back on the next weekend and reconstructed something. That was all done. But who designed it that way? Have they been held accountable? The contractor? And then my other issue is the fact that even though you don't need a permit from the city of Waukegan, you do have to follow their rules when it comes to certain zoning things. And that project, and the complaint is on file with the city, is built too close to Yeoman Creek. And the city of Waukegan has a steep slope ordinance, and this district is in violation of it, and it's going through the process, and you may have to pay a penalty on it because somebody didn't go and check with the city. And you pay these architects and everybody else all this money. Somebody should be checking that out and making sure, because they may come back and tell you you have to dig it up and rebuild it a different way, or you're going to have to pay a big fine. But somebody needs to be held accountable for that.
Mr. McBride.
I know the last time you had spoke, Mr. LeBaron, and the last time I've been down myself to do a courtesy check as far as where we at status-wise with 214, it was, I guess, said to me at some point, we're going to be moving in November on the lower level. It should be completed. Where are we at with that?
So, Mr. McBride, I believe that was the original anticipated, but we did provide an update recently regarding up to December, because we don't know what can happen. When you're talking about construction, you don't know what can happen.
So are you, not to put you on the spot, but you think December we'll be in there?
We are anticipating December.
We know for sure we'll be in before December 30th, right?
Well, that's what I was hearing, because you tell me in November, then you give me leave me open for December for January. So
yeah,
Teresa just said she knows for sure
was
you'll be in
small
there.
buffer, but
be in there
will be.
And that's just
December 30th.
and just for the public. I mean, that's just for the first floor, correct? Only.
Basement.
So, I don't know who's going in the first floor, how many are in that. So I think you might want to let people know that before they start asking questions. If you can get, not here, but I'm just saying, if you can give a brief summary as to what the first floor is going to look like.
Yeah,
when we
that'll
do
be
go
for the
in there.
wraparound center. We can,
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Sabeki.
All right, my question is about the parking lots. All the money that we put in our parking lots, I hope we put in the money in the budget to make sure we're re-seal coating these parking lots and not just letting them deteriorate. Like you do your driveway, when you put a new blacktop driveway, asphalt driveway in, every couple of years you seal coat it. That protects it and gives it a longer thing. With all the weight that's on these, all the sun beating down, we need to start protecting the money that we spend on these parking lots, because once they start cracking and that water gets underneath and we're not protecting them, that's when you have the potholes and it starts coming up, especially with the freeze thaw we have in the winters. You know, we need to start protecting these and start seal coating these parking lots in the summertime of these new parking lots that we spent all this money on, and then restriping them. There's companies out there that do it everywhere, and we just need to start protecting, instead of redoing it every couple years, because you're going to have the potholes again in a couple years. If you don't take care of it, you're going to have it right back the same way in a couple years.
Thank you, Mr. Sabeki. Mr. Edwards, and then I see over there, Ms. Briscoe.
As I'm sitting here listening to y'all talk about the parking lot, I go to every city meeting. But what I'm finding to be strange is I don't see none of you guys up in there. The city is getting ready to do a whole UDO. They're looking at all their ordinance. We're talking a lot about parking lots and how parking lots have to be and having islands and things like that. It's so sad that we have these big entities and we don't have a good working relationship. And it's like nobody seems to get that. Every one of y'all, as it relates to these parking lots and doing them, y'all should be in every last one of those meetings at that city. Because whatever they decide is going to affect what you are allowed to do. And again, I don't see nobody over there. Then we're talking about this wraparound center, this administration building. If you guys are still going to be doing construction in that building, how do you think it's going to be okay for any community to go up in there while construction is going on? Like, come on, y'all. It just don't make a lot of sense on the first floor and y'all still working. You're going to have trucks out there, bricks, whatever's going on. That's not going to be safe. A family bringing their kids do things sometimes. They don't listen to parents. They take off, they run, they do things. That's not going to be a safe environment. And then I'm talking about the wraparound center. Is y'all calling the basement the first floor? Because just like Mr. McBride, I've been over there several times myself. And they've allowed me to come in to look around. And I'm trying to understand, is we putting the wraparound center in the basement? Because that's what it seems to look like. That is not welcoming and inviting to no community, y'all. It really is not. And I'm asking, I see Jeff going down there, but I'd like to see some of you other board members to go down there and look for yourself too.
Oh, I've been down there.
And let's get up in there and really pay attention to what's going on, because again, none of you guys be at these city meetings, but it's talk about at the city meeting that the district didn't have permits and things to do certain things. So what I'm saying is y'all really need to get there and look at what they finna do with this UDO. Because as we're talking about these parking lots and things, we need to think about that. Congratulations to y'all on the projects that y'all do. And Mr. Riddle, I'm glad you pointed that out with the grandstand. And I'm just gonna say it because we get real excited about things like that, but we don't when things are going bad. But I wanna talk about what we're doing, all the projects we're doing, and one of the things that I don't see nobody seems to be paying attention to is putting speed bumps in front of these schools because of all this speeding that's going on. Ain't nobody talking about that though. We're not talking about the cluster, I can't say the word because it'll be inappropriate, but it's the F word, over there in Washington. All that traffic over there when they're getting out of school, the problem that we are causing in this city. How long do y'all think it's going to be before something bad happens right there? How many of you guys actually went and sat when school is being let out at that time to actually see? We're not being proactive. We see these things, and everything we see that we see is wrong. Those are not the things or the projects that we're working on. But then we get up here and gloat on the good that we're doing, and that's why the community is not satisfied. Because although you've done some good, we're wondering why you haven't done this, because this is more important than what you're doing. You can paint them buildings all day long and make them beautiful all outside, but until you change the inside of that building, that is going to be the same building. And right now, the insides are not being changed. So I'm saying this to say, we give you kudos for the effort, for wanting to make it look good. But right now, Mr. Riddle, we don't care how I look. We want our kids to be educated. We want to know that the inside of those buildings are safe. The beautification of them is a non-factor at this point in time right now.
Ms. Briscoe.
Just a couple of quick comments, just really 2 comments. One is, when I was at the Brookside campus, the teachers have expressed concern that the west wing doors do not lock. And so they're very concerned. They said that's a safety issue. And if someone can take a look at that. And I just want to piggyback on what you're saying, Ray Ray. They also said that, and this is separate, is that we need to look into crossing guards and at the Brookside campus. I don't know if you guys have thought about that, but the teachers have said that something needs to be done before it's an accident over there. And their suggestion was crossing guards.
It's been noted.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of those who spoke in those comments. Yeah, one more thing, Mr. Edwards, then we go. Mr. Kino.
A lo que dijo el señor Ray, es cierto. Yo veo otros distritos que tienen buena seguridad para los estudiantes. Este distrito no tiene. La Washington es muy peligrosa. Son estudiantes muchos menores de edad y nadie los está cuidando.
So I just want to bring up, it's to Ray's point, that there are other districts that are doing better in terms of security. And dijo de Washington?
En Washington campus.
Oh, okay. In regards to Washington, the students, there's no security there. And the kids, they are underage. That's todo. Okay.
Mr. Edwards.
And I'm glad Ms. Briscoe brought that up, and this is what I say to you guys, and I'm going to keep on saying this when we talk about all of these entities out in this community. You know, I sit in these meetings and I listen to everybody come up here and talk about everything that they're doing out inside of this community. Those are some of the things that they can do. To come stand there in the morning time and in the afternoon when these kids is coming out of the school. That is a way that we can help the district and help this community without having our hands out. Or without always coming up here asking y'all for something. That's the type of relationship building I want to see happening. Because those are our kids too, so we should be out there doing some of this work. And so what I'm saying to you, board, is when people come up here and do that, maybe you guys should start opposing that. Show me what you're doing before you come up here and ask us for something. Those are partnerships. That's what I want to see. Also, when we're talking about safety, you know, I look at some districts like Gurnee, they maybe have, 15 security guards, maybe just went up. I remember at a time they was at 14. We not there. And I would know we may have 30 in the high school. I oftentimes wonder, do anybody know how big Brookside really is? And how is those 30 people going to cover that entire school? I said, and I spoke with the state's attorney today, he asked me a question. He said, how do you think people are getting the weapons inside the school? I said, you sitting in that seat and you asking me that question? That's a no-brainer. When you're talking about those fire alarms being pulled, somebody like me, I calls the schools all the time, the front desk. Nobody seems to know how to answer the phone. Those kids are coming to school hiding their things on the outside. They pull those fire alarms. They know you guys don't have enough staff to watch them. But even when somebody like me, and I have done it, I've texted many of y'all to give y'all information, I don't get no response back. But I'm not one that come up here and ask y'all for nothing. I'm trying to be a bridge and show y'all what is going to work and what is not working. And I'm not telling y'all what I'm saying. I'm telling y'all what they're saying, and I'm telling you what I see for myself. So when you want to know how they're getting the weapons in, that's how. And you need to relook at those metal detectors, because they only get a certain part of the kids. We are not, and we don't have enough staff, unfortunately, to make sure we doing what we're supposed to do as it relates to safety and security. We don't have enough people there. If you thoroughly checking those kids, it'll take us almost 2 hours to get them in there. Every door on those high schools is not protected. All of them don't have metal detectors. When I was in high school, if I wanted to let somebody in, I just go to one door that I know is not protected, push it open and let them in. That's how our friends used to come in when we was fighting. And what it looks like, it's still happening the same way. So when we talk about, again, projects, those are some projects we should be looking at. The doors, keeping people from the outside from being able to come inside. Keeping our kids from being able to pop up out those doors whenever they want to or whenever they feel like it. We're supposed to be the adults, and sometimes I feel like they are.
Ms. Lindsay.
It's just a clarifying question. Mr. Moten, are we looking into traffic concerns around some of the schools?
Yes, absolutely. That is part of the scope with our safety consultant in Mr. Wilson's office, as well as the crossing guard and everything associated with it, speed bump signage, etc.
Thank you.
And as a point, because I want to talk about empowering the community, the board is not responsible, was accountable, yes, accountable, but not responsible for everything that happens. There's a process. So Ms. Briscoe, if there is a concern, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, I would hope that the staff know to submit those maintenance requests, so then they get pushed up through the system, so then Deputy Moten can very easily say either it's broken or not. Sometimes, not saying this is a case for this situation, things are presented to the Board of Ed, yet when we go and we look for a ticket, it doesn't exist. And so we're playing catch up. There is a process to get things handled and corrected. And so what I assume is that sometimes we need reminders of the process. And so if something is broken, like a door, because you're at the high school, and when you push it, there's supposed to be an alarm sound. It's locked. I can't get out of them. This badge doesn't work at them, right? And so it should be the same for the students. And if that's not happening, that is a security concern. Nobody is taking it lightly, but our way to know is through those maintenance requests. And also that's a way for us to hold the entire system accountable, because we can check how long it's taken to get some of those things repaired, et cetera. So I just want to make sure that our staff, and it's not a way for community members to know it, but if somebody brings an issue, one of the first questions I usually ask is, have you reached out to your building principal or followed the process for submitting a ticket? And then I saw Ms. Vukovic's hand.
On your point about putting a report in, or a ticket, I guess. Sometimes, depending on who it is and whoever the administrator is in the building, they take offense if a staff member notifies here or in the, I don't know, we used to call it school dude. I know you have another name for it now. Because you went ahead and put an order in or something, and they want to be able to do that. But then when you tell them, sometimes they don't do it. They don't go, it's not top priority at that moment. So, we've talked before about staff being afraid to speak and those kind of things. They would rather tell a sub that they know is a community member, and obviously you care very much about the kids. They probably trust Wagenia more than they trust putting something online with their name on it that's complaining or notifying that there's an issue. Whether it's, I had a door in my building for right outside my room, right down the stairs, that was broken for years. It wouldn't shut unless somebody pulled it behind them. And I asked multiple times, and finally I just would every morning go and double check that it was shut. But if anybody came in after I did, you know, it might not be. So that's another piece to this puzzle. It's not so easy for staff to notify that something's wrong in their building because they're afraid of the ramifications from it.
And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. I apologize, but we are talking about, we wanted to go and update the community on how we're spending their tax dollars related to the summer projects. So I think the concerns that have been raised are 100% legitimate, but unless we're looking to add to the conversation, I am going to ask that we would move on. And then I do want to state something very publicly that I don't usually do, but I'm speaking directly to camera. And what I'm going to ask, I guess it's the only thing is we don't change it, Ms. Vukovic, unless we're made aware of it, right? And if people are afraid, is there any directive, superintendent, that teachers aren't allowed to put in their own request?
Not that I know of, and if there is, then please email me, the superintendent, or our general counsel, or even Joe Clary, who takes Title IX complaints, but he could also look in this complaint. However, I would think that there's many times when, and I'm wrong, I could be wrong about the process, but when a teacher puts a work order in, because I've been in those buildings, the building principal does get notification, but it's not like instant notification. It's there. We want a safe environment. So if there's something wrong, put those work orders in, and our staff will come out and address those in a timely manner. I know you have a way of how you look at those, LeBaron, and we'll come back and explain that even more in detail. But there should be nothing punitive if door is not working, or if you need a light in your room, or your projector is not working, and we want to get you a functional environment so that you're able to perform your task.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback on what you said, you absolutely right about, you know, you guys not knowing what's going on. And then when you guys are made aware, you got to get in and find out, and then it's like you're playing catch up. So if I had any advice to the board, I don't know how many departments it is in the district, right? But if each one of you members took a couple of departments that you looked over, because we know for real that a lot of staff just ain't gonna come do it. They're not. And so we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, like you said, because that's a whole nother conversation, which is another reason why I asked you guys to do town hall, because this is the type of dialogue that we, the community, look for with you board members. This is when we feel like we being heard. We got to have more conversations like this, y'all, for real.
I just have one thing real quick on the safety and security. We can design, I have a big background in security and that. We could design and put all these systems in place. We need to test our systems. Like you do everything, lifeguards, they throw babies in the water, mannequins, to make sure they're paying attention. We need to test our systems to make sure this stuff's not getting in. I've brought it up when you started here. We need to start bringing the dogs in our buildings. If the kids don't know when it's gonna happen, and it can just pop up and happen, that's how we're gonna find the stuff in our schools. And we need to test every one of our systems, these walk-through metal detectors and everything. We need to start bringing stuff, you know, stuff to come in. You got to test your system somehow to make sure that it's being caught. You can't fix a problem if you don't test your own systems. That's the biggest thing in security.
So if we test them, we wouldn't tell you, right? Is because, so I think as part of the security assessment, that was one of the provisions. But we're not providing, obviously, a report of vulnerabilities. As you know, someone in security.
You can't tell nobody, because once you tell somebody, you tell one person you bring the dogs in.
No.
Just even.
Yeah, not the. I mean the actual assessment. So is that something that we plan to do and have done and will continue to do, Deputy Moulton?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I volunteered to test the system, but he told me I couldn't.
Anywho, I do appreciate all the comments and, like you say, the dialogue around it. We have the schedule of investment 6B, which are there. Any questions, comments, concerns? C, the treasurer's report, which has been presented for your convenience. And then D, the student activity and convenience account bank reconciliation. With that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez.
Mr. McBride
Mr. McBride, I'm sorry.
and Gonzalez, yeah.
All in favor, signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned. If we can get only one thing on the student
And?
achievement meeting done. So with that, I'd like a motion to, I'd like to call to order November 21st, 2023 student achievement meeting.
Why are we having a student achievement meeting?
It's only one thing on there is the minutes. If y'all don't want to have the meeting, I'm trying to.
A minute.
Yes, just the minutes.
That's all that's
That's
on
it,
there.
Ms. Hannah. So a motion, like I said, I'd like to call to
Make
order
a
the
motion.
November 21st, 2023. I don't need a motion until I get into it. Thank you, though. But I'd like to call to order the November 21st, 2023 student achievement meeting. If I can have a roll call, please.
Mr. McBride. Yes. Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
But I do want to call a point of order because there's no agenda.
There's an agenda. It's nothing on there.
Just 3.
So Ms. Hannah is present.
Ms.
We will
Gonzalez?
continue with roll.
Yes.
Ms. Fabian.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Here.
President Ewing.
Yes. And item 3A, the October 17, 2023 minutes.
Motion to accept.
Motion to approve by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments, questions, corrections to the minutes? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Mr. Vukovic.
How can there be no discussion here of that state report card or whatever it's called that came out last month? How can there be no discussion on that? I mean, some people here had comments in the press and they found a couple of little glimmers of hope that they talked about, but it's an embarrassment. You guys, this entire night should have been dissecting that building by building and looking at that. But we're just pretending like it didn't happen, and we're just going to go on and go have a happy holiday.
Yeah, so as the board president, again, and I'm going to be honest, right, to the community and Ms. Vukovic, because we talk straight. So as the board president, when we look at everything we talk about, the individuals who are being a part of negotiations and other things that are taking course. So no one's going to ignore the school report card. That year is also over. So when we talk about the timing of when things will be coming before the board, that was a decision. We wanted to keep the agenda light this evening. Doesn't mean that we're going to act like it doesn't exist. There was an email sent from each school with the report card. There are town halls happening at each school location. Based on that, and the board will be able to come with their questions. It's because that school report card is what's going to help us in our planning for the upcoming year. So I apologize if the appearance is that we don't care about it. I think just because we don't discuss it tonight doesn't mean that we're not going to discuss it. So I appreciate you bringing it up and bringing it top of mind. I would also encourage anyone to make sure that they go out and review the school report card. We're not hiding information. We're not looking at information, not trying to not bring it to the forward. There was an email that went out directly from the superintendent that took people right to it. So while we will make sure that we bring it forward in another student achievement student achievement meeting this evening, with it being a holiday weekend, with negotiations, a lot of other things, the decision was made by me to keep the agenda light. So I do apologize if anybody's concerned about that. And then Ms. Aquino, I saw your hand.
Yo también estoy un poco confundida.
I am also confused.
Estoy aquí precisamente por el rendimiento, porque es decepcionante.
I am here for student achievement because it is very upsetting.
¿Cómo se supone que ustedes son las voces de nosotros y no están haciendo nada?
How do you say that you are our voices if you're not doing anything?
Y no digas que el director, porque el director, el principal, no hacen nada.
And don't say that it's the principals because the principals are not doing anything.
Estoy aquí porque me preocupan mis hijos.
I'm here because I'm worried about my children.
Y desde que llegaron nuevo personal aquí, administradores, cada día vamos peor en educación.
And since there have been new administrators, the education has been worse.
Y ahora me dicen no vamos a ver discusiones, pues entonces ¿de qué trata?
And then now we're saying that we're not going to discuss it, so then what are we doing about that?
Para mí y para otros padres la educación es muy importante.
For me and other parents, the students' education is very important.
Y deberíamos de estar hablando de eso.
And we should be talking about that.
Yeah, like I say, I'm a parent. I care about the education in our schools, so thank you, Ms. Aquino. I appreciate your comments. It is not a lack of uncaring. So I do appreciate your point and your perspective. With that,
That we're not saying we're not going to talk about.
I did, yeah. So that's why I say I made it very clear is my thing. So Ms. Aquino is saying that she cares about her students' education, and I appreciate that.
That's why I wanted you to just
Okay.
say it one more time.
Señora Granada.
Señora, no es que no vamos a hablar sobre eso, es que lo vamos a hacer en otro momento cuando hay administradores que puedan atender sus preguntas.
So I do appreciate it, and it's a
Porque hoy en día estamos como hoy en día no hay muchos administradores porque primeramente el día de feriados y segundamente muchos de ellos están trabajando con la unión. Por eso usted no ve todos de ellos hoy. En el futuro, cuando están todos presentes, así van a poder responder a sus preguntas. So she would like a date.
we can do it next student achievement, right?
Después hablamos y le puedo decir cuándo es el foro para su escuela específicamente. So all of the schools are having a town hall.
So
She's concerned about her. She's concerned specifically about her school.
Right, and so and that's my only, again, when we talk about empowerment, the best and first place is with the principal, and that is where the data is going to be most. That's your student school. If you don't want to, we are still going to provide a forum on December 19th, the next student achievement meeting, if this is where you want to come. But again, each principal sent out information with the school report cards. Each parent can reach out and set a meeting with the school principal. That's going to be the number one, the best place, right? So if you don't want to do that, then December 19th is when the Board of Education will have that conversation.
Si estoy aquí es porque el principal de la escuela, el principal de la escuela tal parece que no le importa la educación.
If I am here, it's because your school principal of my students does not seem to care.
Ahorita el programa GAC está más bajo que el programa regular. Se supone que debería de ir alto.
So right now the GAP program is seeing very low scores as opposed to the regular program. It should be that they should be higher.
Ni siquiera tenemos coordinador
And we don't even have a coordinator.
para el programa GAC.
We don't even have a coordinator for the GAP program.
Ya fui con todos tus administradores, con Mr. Berry, con Mr. Rice de la Sánchez. Ya fui con todos y ni siquiera me contestan los emails.
So I've already gone to Mr. Berry, to Ms. Rizela Sanchez, to other administrators, and they don't even answer my emails.
Nomás están echando la bolita uno y otro.
They're just throwing me to one to another.
Ya llegué hasta el punto de que yo quiero una reunión con la superintendente, con mi secano, mi Cristina Lindsay.
So I've gotten to the point where I want a meeting with the superintendent and Ms. Lansing.
Esto tiene que parar, es un programa de dotados, niños superdotados, no niños regulares.
This needs to stop because GAP is a gifted program for gifted students, not regular students.
Thank you, Mr. Keno. And that's the one thing for parents too, right? Is when we're having these conversations, the board is engaging on the district level. GAP is a very important conversation, and the more appropriate place for that conversation is with the superintendent. So I will let the superintendent reach out to arrange whatever meeting based on the fact that you've relayed that you've followed the proper chain of command. So the next person in that command is the superintendent. Ms. Fabian?
Just to clarify for those that are listening or watching, ISB has also put out a lot of information that you can go online. A lot of that information is also translated for parents and community members to understand that this year's ratings and weights and calculations are different than they have been in the past. And so if you go onto isb.net and then put in report card, you'll be able to see all the new graphics and be able to see that information there as well. Estoy hablando del Estado.
Mr. Edwards, final comment on, I guess, before we adjourn.
She's asking if the information is actualized because we don't have a report in here. So I'm letting her know it's the state's not the district.
And this is one of the reasons why I say we should be doing community forums. And you guys, the Board of Education, should make sure these things are done. If the community does not understand how to navigate the system, if they do not understand how to read the language on these report cards, it is going to always look like you guys are hiding something. We expect you guys to speak for us on our behalf. And if you are not communicating with us why things are being the way that it is, even as it relates to these meetings, we got to get better with getting this information out there. I understand times and things are changing and it's going more electronic, but even still being so, we still got to keep them old habits of how we communicate and how we get information out there, y'all. And like, I'm gonna say this again because I don't hear too many people in the Latino community saying this. Every meeting that we have, we should have somebody fluently translating, always. Even we should have somebody here that is speaking or know how to do sign language. These meetings need to be addressed to the entire community and everybody needs to feel included. And when we don't do that, everybody is not included. And so tonight we made time to come here to this meeting and we understand that it's a holiday. We get it. We got a holiday too. We prepping too, but we are here. And so I'm just saying that to say, going forward, better preparation prevents poor performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
The Teresa posted, why would we go to?
So ISB has the flyers that show you how that data is calculated.
I only went on Teresa's data, right? So that's what I reviewed. Now you just confused me.
So what I'm saying is ISB has how the calculations are made in order to give you a designation.
No, I understand that. I understand that. But that's different than, so maybe Teresa should have sent what you're referring to. Should we be looking at what you're referring to versus the data, the report?
No,
she
no,
sent?
mine explains the data.
Yeah, so hers is.
So hers is the data for the district.
Right.
And so to Mr. Bukovic's point is how our designations have changed. If you look, the way that ISB is calculating the data is different.
So should that be also sent to us then?
So ISB was just additional information for those that want to do the deep dive. You sent out the link to the school report card, which is also ISB data, correct? Right. So they both are data from ISB. That the numbers that you got that came out with the link, those are great. What Carolina is saying is there were changes that were made and implemented at ISB about school ratings. And if anybody wants to do a deeper dive to understand, right, my point on that, and it's just to say, is we celebrated when they changed and our scores went up. And so we can't then not also take accountability when they change the formula and our scores go down. But if you want to understand how those scores are actually calculated, then ISB has tools that will help you to interpret that.
So Dr. Nault, I apologize, Ms. Briscoe. Dr. Nault, when he presented to say that it was coming, he had noted that there were going to be changes to the designations, and then that information, you can go out and get that ahead of time. So there was an attempt by the district to do so, but for your point, yes, it is nice to have all of the information in one place because not everybody remembers and follows. Understood, and that's a great point, but I just wanted to refresh that the district did mention it, but a full picture in one email would be nice.
And again, I want to also say I appreciate everybody's time. I'm thankful, most importantly, for this community and for Waukegan. I also want to say is that's another reason, because when we talk about planning, is I didn't want people, if they had a specific thing that they wanted to talk about, something that they cared about, that's part of why we do try and post these agendas in advance, right? So people know what's going to be on it. So I do apologize for whatever confusion that may have existed, take accountability for it, but honestly, it was posted, it was there, and that was why there was nothing on there. We, to your point, Mr. Edwards, are not leaving after this. We have to go back down into closed session because we have other district business to attend to. So while I was trying to be respectful of staff and community members' times, with it being a holiday, the board is here and is committed to doing the work. So I do thank everybody who came out this evening. I do appreciate the robust conversation. I did hear some suggestions and takeaways. Town halls has been something that we've talked about. So look forward to figuring out a plan to address that. I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lensing, second by Ms. Gonzalez. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned. And now I would